So what I'm going to do, I am going to be creating a new file, but this file is going to be under components. All the functions to read, to send data, to get data from Pinata, from IPFS, we are going to be using this Pinata file. Inside this file, I am going to be configuring all the functions. So new file, Pinata. JS, okay? Now I am going to be importing the information from config because I am going to be using all those details, okay? So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, I am going to list. I'm gonna go to here. I'm gonna go ahead and paste. And okay, so I am importing Axios, the module that I'm going to be using to perform the API calls, okay? And I have to work with Pinata JWT. This is all the information that we obtain from the import, okay? Now let's build that first function, okay? But first, we need to obtain the data from the user, which means that when the user types the information, we need to make sure that we are getting that. So let's build that first. What I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to save this because we're going to go back here, okay? And we are going to go to list, but now I want to build a function that will allow me to get that information, okay? So we're going to type inside the declaration, we're going to say async function, call this function list property, okay? This will be the function to list the property. Okay, so list property. Cool. I am going to be calling those elements. Well, let's do the test with the first one, the title. We are going to be obtaining the value from title, and I'm going to just print that on the screen so then you know that we're passing the right stuff, the right data, so then we can send that to the IPFS function. Let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do, the idea is when the user hits a list property, the button at the end, we are going to grab all the text that we obtain from the front end and then send that to IPFS, okay? So let's start with that. So I am going to get the title. So let's begin by declaring let get title. This will be the name of the function. Now we are going to be calling document. Document get element by ID. Remember, we are obtaining the information by ID, okay? And now inside here, what we need to declare the actual ID. What's the ID? Title, okay? So we're going to type title, okay? And now we are going to say what? Value. We want to obtain the value of that title, but we also want to make sure that that is a text, text format. So we're just going to make sure that it's as string, which means that I am going to obtain that and I am going to make sure that it's a string value. So we pass just text. Okay, awesome. Now with this, I want to show you what will happen. I am going to just do a console log, meaning that I want to see that on screen. So once I type something, I should be printing that on the screen to make sure that this is working. Okay, so we're just going to console log what? Get title, what we just declared. Okay, and we are going to attach this to the button. So let's attach the function to the button so we can test the function. Okay, so we're just going to go down at the end, and list property, it's right here, and then the button, you see it right here. So what I have to do below the style section, I am going to type on click, and we will map that function to the button. So it will be list property, okay? Awesome. So now I am going to Control S, and I should be able to at least type the title and see the title printed on screen, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let me go back here. Here we go. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I am going to press F12 so you can see the console displaying what I typed here. Hi, this is a test, okay? And we are going to hit list property. And I think I got an issue here. So let me go back here. And sure enough, this is not the right call. It's going to be value. That's it, value, okay? Control S, and let's go back. Let's give it a shot one more time. I'm going to refresh the entire thing. We're going to just clear here so we can see it. And then let's type this. Hi, this is a test, okay? And we go here. Sure enough, awesome. So it's working. Perfect. So we now know that we're getting the data. Awesome. Let's go ahead and continue doing all this for all my fields. I am going to be adding this tutorial purposes, I'm going to copy and paste the calls so then we know that we get everything, okay? And let's go back here, okay? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to just delete here and basically, oops, I double pasted this right here. So now I should be able, let me format the selection, perfect. Now I am literally mapping to every single attribute that I have in the front end. Now we have variables that we can use to send the information to IPFS, okay? So what I got to do now, I have to determine, number one, that the user has typed information in those fields. We don't want to send garbage. We don't want to send empty data to IPFS. So it creates a record that there's nothing on that record. So how do we do that? We want to make sure that the information is going to be sent to IPFS only if there is data stored in the variable. In this case, there is actual data or text in the fields, okay? So what I got to do, I am going to be making sure that every single variable has data, okay? Let me show you. So what I'm going to do, I am going to be checking every single attribute that we provided. If there is, that means that this has data. So make sure that this has data, this has data. Everything here has data. All my variables have data. Then what I want to do, I want to return and I want to actually execute the function, okay? Now we have to do the following, okay? So this is, we can let this here. We're going to save this because now I obtained all the data from the user. All the information that the user has provided, I already got all that information. Now it's time to send it to IPFS. So what I have to do, I have to export this data and send it to IPFS by making a function here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do the function to send the data to IPFS, in this case to Pinata, okay? And we are going to label this function to be export async function because remember, we're going to be importing that function in the list page. So we have to export it from Pinata.js into list, okay? So what I'm going to do is export async function, and let's label this send JSON to IPFS, okay? Awesome. But here's the catch. I need to make sure that I am going to bring the data that I obtained from this function into the Pinata.js, which means that I have to send all the variables and import those variables here. I am going to be, now that I have this, right? Send JSON to IPFS. I'm going to save it, okay? I am going to be importing this function in list, and then I can pass this value into that function, okay? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to type import, and let's type send. There we go. We can see it right here. Send JSON to IPFS. We'll press tab, and now we have the import done for that function that we just built here, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Now that I have this, I want to make sure that I can obtain a receipt of the call, making sure that the call was successful, so then I can return something. I can say to the user transaction completed successfully or something like that to know that everything was successful, okay? So what I'm going to do, I am going to say constant, and we're going to type receipt, okay? And what are we going to obtain? What value are we going to store into receipt? We're going to say await. What are we going to await? We are going to await what? Send JSON. This is where we are going to be calling that function. Inside send JSON to IPFS, what do I need to do? I am going to be passing every single value. I am going to pass in order because remember, this is very important. Please pay attention to this. This literally can cost you hours in troubleshooting and figuring out why the data is not arranged correctly. Like all the data has been mixed. So you want to make sure that this has been sent in the same order to IPFS. So then we can call this accordingly, okay? So with that said, I am going to be calling every single thing with a comma. So get title, okay? Then we are going to be passing everything else, get price, but in the same order, okay? Very important. So to expedite the tutorial, what I'm going to do, I already have everything pre-staged. I'm just going to copy and paste, okay? And we are going to type here the whole thing. So I have everything, okay? I have to provide the picture, but we're going to be doing this in little bit later. So what I got to do, by the way, I mentioned in order, but that doesn't mean that this is the order that I have to follow. It's the order that I'm using, or at least the order that I'm sending this data to the Pinata.js file, so then I can catch it here. We have to make sure that we're sending it the same way as we are receiving it here, okay? Make sure that that's in place, okay? So let's go here. And now while we have this information here, I can then declare the following. Let's say that I obtain a successful confirmation. I am going to be returning in Pinata.js on this function. I am going to be returning completed. So then I can grab that value here, and then I can say another if receive equals completed, guess what? Then transaction was successful. Okay, that's how we make sure that the call was successful, okay? And let's just do it right here. So, but first we're gonna go to Pinata. I am going to be importing all those variables that I just sent in list, okay? I am going to replace all this. I just wanted to explain to you how this works, okay? So we got everything here, right? Now I have to open the brackets and I'm going to close the brackets right here. Cool, awesome. Now that I have this, I am going to be doing the following. I have to obtain the time, the current time, so then I can also store that time in IPFS. So every single listing we want to display, let me show you. We want to display the time, in this case, the date that this listing was placed. So with that, I have to use the date function in JavaScript, or in this case in Next.js, to get us that data so that we can also store that in IPFS. And then we know when that house was listed for sale, okay? So let's go back, okay? And let's build that function, okay? So what I need to do, first of all, I am going to build it. Let's build it on top, okay? So we can continue the order of my functions in the Pinata.js file. We are working inside the Pinata.js, okay? So what I'm going to do, export async function. Let's name this to be getDate. Okay. Now I am going to say the following. I am going to obtain the reading from getDate, and this will call date. So with date, it's going to get the date and the time on the end user's machine or in the end user's browser, in this case from the end user's computer. So we will obtain those values and we can pass those values into Pinata, okay? So let's go. So constant date format, okay? It's going to be equal. I am going to be building this constant date format. Now we will obtain that value. So we will say new date, and then we will say date dot now, meaning that give me the time right now, okay? With that information, I am going to be formatting the output, okay? Check this out. This is how I am going to display the month, the day, and the year, okay? Constant date value, and we will format the date value, and this is what we are going to pass, okay? This will be our return. We are going to say date format. We're calling the first a constant, and we will say get month. And you can see already populating. So code will populate the methods that we have on that function, okay? So we're going to say get month, okay? And then inside month, we have to say 1. So it gets the current month, and 1 will give us the actual month, okay? So we'll just do this right here. And that should give us, right now it's January, so this basically gives us 1, okay? Plus, now we want to append more information. We are actually building that syntax. So let me go back here, this right here. So we're building the month. Now we have to add a dot. Then we have to provide the day, the dot, and the year, okay? So let's do that. Let's go here. And I'm just going to press enter and continue below here. So now I want to provide the dot. So I'm going to do a string of dot. Then I'm going to say plus. Now we are going to type date format. And then we will say get date. Okay. And then from here, we should obtain the date value, the current date value. And then now we are going to do once again another dot and string. So then we can add the year. Now we are going to type date format, get full year, okay? Awesome. We'll just close here and off we go. This looks Great. Okay. Awesome. Now with this, I want to return also the time. So I want to get the current date, right? And then I want to get the current time. So with this, I am going to use date value and I will get time. Basically what I'm doing right now to get the date, get the month, get the full year. Now I'm going to do the same to get the time. Okay. Constant time. Let's call this time. So what I'm going to do, I am going to open a new, because I am going to be nesting a couple of functions inside, or a couple of calls. I am going to say new date. Inside the date, I am going to be passing date value. So then we can read from date value. We are already obtaining information from date value. Why not just read the time from here as well, right? Now I'm going to be formatting the output. You are going to see, don't worry, you're going to see the output. I just want to obtain this and then make this a little bit more efficient. Now I have to do another format, and don't worry, you are going to see this once I finish it up. And then I am just going to add a dash to the time. Okay, so basically what it's going to do is going to remove the dot. So let's say the time it's displayed like this. It's displayed like, 12. So we got like decimal. So we're removing that, and instead we are adding a dash to the value. Okay, so I am going to be showing, don't worry, you're going to see the final result, and it's going to make a lot of sense. Okay, so I'm going to be joining this, right? So I already obtained the information. I formatted that information. Now I want to get the time from date value. So what I'm actually doing is removing any information that has to do with the month, the date, the full year, and I am only going to be showing the current time. Okay, so with that, I have to do the following. I have to do get time. Okay, this will get me the time. And this value, let me go back. This value is going to be shown in milliseconds. So we have to format that. You see, get the time value in milliseconds. I have to format that. So in order for me to format it, I have to divide this by 1000, which is milliseconds. And that should give me the time in seconds and minutes and hours, etc. Okay, cool. Now we got both. We got the date and we got the time. Awesome. Now what I'm going to do, I am going to be returning both values. Okay, return what? Date, time, date, value, okay, and time. That's it. Now with this function, I can use this value to, pass this information to the JSON file that will be sent to IPFS. Okay, and then I am recording also the date and time that a user listed a property for sale. Okay, now I'm going to be building a function to take advantage of get date. Okay, so I'm going to create a constant. The constant is going to be called fetch time. Okay, and this will be equals to what? To await, and we will call that function that we just built, get date. Okay, now I want to obtain the date. We want to obtain the date when that user listed that property for sale. How do we do that? Now, constant, and then we have to obtain the value from fetch time, which you can see already. It's going to return two things. It's going to return date value and time, and you can see it right here. This is why you can actually return it here. I can now obtain that particular value. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I am going to do a list date. So this will be the date that a listing was submitted in the application, and I'm going to say fetch time, right? Because we're calling fetch time, and then we're going to say date value. And this is how we pass now that value, whatever we obtain from here, onto list date. And this is what I need to send to Pinata. That's it. Okay. Now, here's the cool thing about this. Now I have to work with Pinata's API. We are going to be using the first API address, which is going to let us pin JSON to IPFS. Okay. We are going to be using the first one of many URLs that we are going to be creating. For this particular function, let's build the URL. Let's call URL. And this URL will be to point to the API to pin JSON files. Okay, so we need to call a particular API address to do this. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be, I got it right here. Let's just take advantage of it. Just gonna paste. Okay. So this one, you can see it right here. This is the address. It's API pinata.cloud pinning pin JSON to IPFS. Okay, cool. I have the URL. Now I got to pass the information. We obtain everything from the user who wants to list a property for sale. We got all that information. Now we have to create that JSON file. How do you build a JSON file so that we can pass that to IPFS? Check this out. Data. Let's just call this data, right? And now we're going to call this magical method called JSON stringify. And this is how we build that file with every single property. Okay, cool. Now let's open, let's build that inside here. Okay, awesome. So let's start building our quote database structure. Basically, this is what are we going to be building, how the database entries will look like. Okay, the first thing that I got to tell Pinata is to Pinata metadata. Okay, this is extremely important. What this will do is going to let us store each IPFS with an attribute that we can use to list, okay? To obtain everything that has been pinned in our application. And let me explain. You want to make sure that you can search every single listing that was uploaded to IPFS using Pinata, okay? The reason why is this is how you are going to be displaying all the listings and rendering every single listing in the front page. So for that, Pinata has, I think, one of the greatest tools in Pinata is to allow a proper index of every single IPFS, or else how are you going to tell the front end, hey, this is what you need to render, right? And this is how we identify that, okay? So in this case, I am going to be building a property here called name. This is what Pinata is expecting us to read so that we can list every single IPFS file and get the information and display that in the front page, okay? So what I got to do here, I got to say name, and then what attribute do I want to search for? List, let's type list data, okay? List data, we don't need to do that camel syntax. So all I'm going to do is list data, okay? We're gonna say comma. Now, when I do the read, once we are done with this and we do our first test, if I want to read what I uploaded, I am going to be reading, but then I'm going to be attaching the metadata index or the value to be list data. And then Pinata will automatically know that this is what I need to obtain or I want to obtain, and then we will get the information back. Don't worry, you are going to see this, okay? Okay, list data. Very important. This is like extremely important, okay? Awesome. So now we are going to send another attribute that Pinata is expecting us. Basically, it's a CID version that we have to pass. Nothing too major that you should be concerned. Just make sure that you pass this. Let's see here. So we got the Pinata options. This is, like I told you, this is like one of the most critical things, okay? Awesome. So now we are finally building that structure. This will be the quote database that we will be storing in IPFS using Pinata, okay? Now, what I have to do here, I have to say Pinata content, okay? This is what Pinata should expect to then properly index as the property values, okay? So this will include all the get title, get price, get year, all the data that the user has provided when he or she listed that property for sale. This is where we need to pass that, okay? Cool. So let me then add inside the content, because this is like the top level in the JSON directory or tree. I am going to be calling now the property itself. We are going to say property info. This is what I'm going to be calling. This is what I will be providing for that property detail, okay? This is the property listing, okay? Awesome. Now inside property info, let's then list every single thing that we should be expecting, okay? Let's do it. First thing, title. Okay, what do we expect from title? What information should we pass? Get title. Next, we are going to be passing what? Remember, we got title, we got price. Okay, so it's going to be price. This is the asking price, get price. Next, okay, let's do now year. And we are going to say get year. Okay, and now let's continue. Let's finish everything. I am now going to be passing listed. Listed will be the list date. This is where we are sending the current date and time when that user listed that property for sale. Okay, so we are going to send that now. I'm going to say listed, and I'm going to type list date. Okay, so now we have effectively passed every single value. Oops, we're missing picture, but this is going to be a little bit different. Okay, picture, we got to do some magic. Okay, now let me show you something. You know what we are going to do? I am going to do the following. I am going to make sure that we've removed picture. Okay, now I am going to be creating, now we have the data, right? Now we have to send that API call. And I got to make sure that the order here matches the index, or else the information is not going to pass in order. And we will have such a nightmare. Let's build the constant, and the constant is going to be send file. I'm just going to make this up. And now we're going to say await, and this is where we're going to be using Axios to send this to Pinata. Okay, we are going to invoke Axios. Now we are going to say post. It's a post request. Okay, and inside the post request, the first thing that we are going to be providing is the URL. Okay, this will be the address that I'm going to be sending the information to. So we are going to type URL. The second information that it's expecting is the data. You can see it right here. And finally, the config, which in this case is the headers. I'm going to show you that right now. I'm going to say data, and then we are going to say headers. So remember, we imported those headers. We are going to be using this one, send JSON header, because we are going to be sending the JSON to IPFS, and we talked about what the header information was before. Now we are going to be using this, okay? So send JSON header, and this will be the third information that I got to send to Pinata. Sweet. Okay, awesome. I want to obtain the CID. And if you don't know what a CID is, it's basically the hash that IPFS generates every time that we upload a file to the IPFS blockchain. What I'm going to do, I am going to say constant, so then we can know that we have a hash file, and then we can use the hash file to read the information, okay? Hash, and then we are going to say what? I am going to be declaring this value. I'm going to just copy and paste for sake of the tutorial right here. Okay, check this out. So what I'm going to do, I am going to be returning whatever the CID value was on the call. So once we send the information and we have confirmation that IPFS got the information, IPFS is going to provide a CID. It's going to spit a CID hash value. This is what I want to see, because that tells me that I was able to send the files to IPFS successfully. And what should I obtain in return? It's going to start with IPFS ://. And now what am I going to display? It's going to display from this call, whatever information I obtain from that call is going to get me the IPFS hash. This is the value that Pinata is going to give us back. If the call was successful, we should obtain the CID. Okay, and that tells us that, yes, we were able to upload that to IPFS. How I'm going to be authenticating. Remember, this is a service that has an API key and it has the secret. How am I going to send that? Remember the header? We are actually sending that information already because we configure that in config.js. From there, I am just going to authenticate myself, sending this header with that information, okay? Awesome. Okay, now and finally, what I want to see that it worked, okay? We're just going to do this test, and then you want to take a look and see how everything looks, okay? Awesome. So now, if I make this call, click list property, as long as I map the function to the button, I should call and send all the information to IPFS, in this case to Pinata. And in return, I should see the CID value. I should see this populated in the console browser with the CID. And that tells us we're golden, okay? So let's give it a shot. And let's go back to index, okay? Sorry, let's go back to list, okay? Now, what I have to do, send JSON to IPFS. This is the function that we just configured, and everything has been sent. The only thing that I have to make sure that I'm not going to pass is picture because we don't have that yet. But everything else should be there, okay? Awesome. Now, because I'm storing the output of send JSON to IPFS, receipt, what do you think receipt should give us back? It's going to give us back the CID, that information that we are returning, because remember what we are doing, it's calling Pinata.js. I am sending that information to the Pinata.js. And from there, if everything went well, it's going to show the hash. So what I have to do, as a matter of fact, instead of doing console log hash, I am going to return hash because I can do console log in the other file, in this case, in the list.js. You're going to see this now. So instead of doing console log here, what I'm going to do is return hash, okay? So we are returning hash and Control S. Now we're going to go back to list, and now receive should give us the CID because we are returning hash, and now all I have to do is console log receipt, and I should obtain the hash, okay? Console log receipt, okay? Cool, awesome. Now, if everything goes well, I should obtain this value, okay? And tells me that we are sending stuff to IPFS, okay? So let me go ahead and make sure that the function is attached to the button and we can give it a shot. It is. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's go to list property. Now what I have to do, I am going to do a new listing title. Let's type this is the first listing, and we are going to set asking price. Let's just put a number here. And we are going to say 2008 or 9, and then we're going to say HOA of 100. In this case, if anyone out of the United States, this is the Homeowners Association fee. I am not going to go too much into controversy or in if I am in agreement or not in agreement with this. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. You don't see what they're doing with this, but that's topic for another video, not for this. Okay. All right. So now address, let's make the address South Beach 1234. City is going to be Miami. This is going to be Florida. And then we will say the country, USA. Okay. Postal code, let's just make something up. And let's type some information for this particular listing, anything that the seller might want to add to make it more attractive. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, priced to sell quick, okay? And then we're gonna say how many floors, 2 floors. I'm gonna say 2 rooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 garages. And we are not going to be uploading the picture because we haven't worked with that function yet, okay? So I'm gonna say the name, it's going to be Martha. And we're gonna say msmith at netudev.io, and we're gonna say 7AA2354344. Okay, awesome. Now let's see if we're lucky. Okay, so I'm gonna do is open the console, and then we are going to hit here and see if we obtain the CID. Oh, bravo, 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 bravo. We got the information. That means that we obtained the CID. Everything looks promising. Awesome. With this value, I should obtain the data that we need for this listing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I am going to head to Pinata to confirm that we see the data that we literally copied and typed here. Okay, so let me go and show you this. Going to refresh, and that should be list data. Remember list data? Let's go back. Let me show you real quick. I am going to show this list data. And remember, list data. This is how we are going to be indexing this on Pinata. And now when I need to read every single listing, I am going to call this name list data, and it will spit every single file that has this metadata name. Okay, we got it right here. I'm going to press click and see if we are lucky. Look at that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. What do we see here? Listed. Remember, this is our date our date function. So this is how we are going to obtain that listed date, okay? And this information, I am going to display this in the front page. Cool. We got the floors, we got the bathrooms, we got the rooms, garage, the name, email, phone, lifetime opportunity, price to sell quick, HOA, the SIP. This looks amazing. Now, let's continue. What we need to do, let's add the picture to the call, okay? We have to do a couple of things because with picture, there's a separate function that is going to be called. So then we send the picture and then we provide the link so that we can open the picture. Don't worry, I'm going to explain all this.